darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light."
I nesten hvert eneste skoleslag i verden lærer unge mennesker om det store mysteriet, hvordan verden ble til. Og nesten overalt er historien den samme. Læreren sier, langsomt, gjennom millioner av år, ble alt til ved tilfeldigheter. Massevis av tid og tilfeldigheter fikk det til å skje. Men det er noen skoler som også underviser om en annen historie. De betrakter verden som skapt av et intelligent, utenforstående vesen de kaller Gud, som en vitenskapelig mulighet. I disse programmene møter du en framstående britisk vitenskapsmann som heter professor Arthur Wilder Smith, en av de få vitenskapsmenn i verden i dag som har 3 doktorgrader. Han har utgitt over 60 bøker og vitenskapelige artikler, både i skapelse-utviklingsdebatten og på sitt eget vitenskapelige område biokjemi. Professor Wilder Smith bor og arbeider for tiden i Sveits. La oss se på verden omkring oss på nytt. Sammen med professor Wilder Smith og andre høyt kvalifiserte vitenskapsmenn vil vi undersøke fakta i naturen.
Now there are 2 main models which are used to explain the origin of the cosmos, of the solar system, of the elements, and of biology right up to man. The first model which is used is known as the creation model and teaches that the elements and man and all biology were made by the concept of God, and that he did it in quite a short time, and it means that the earth is relatively young. That's the creation model. The second model is known as the evolutionary model and assumes that the elements, cosmos, and biology and man developed over millions and millions of years, slowly, spontaneously, by chance, and that this evolutionary principle is the principle behind the elements and biology in toto. Now that's known as the evolutionary model. Now we're going in this series of films to look into these 2 models and see which model the evidence fits best.
Klokka tikker og går. Langsomt forvandler tannhjulene framtid til fortid. Er det tiden som har laget urverket? Laget tannhjulene urverket? Hvem laget urverket? Undrer du deg ikke av og til over deg selv? Hør her. Med øynene dine kan du se denne filmen. Du ser disse menneskene bevege seg. Med ørene dine lytter du til det jeg har å si. Lysbølgene og lydbølgene når fram til hjernen din gjennom nervesystemet. Utrolig, ikke sant? Du lever. Kroppen din beveger seg. Du kan bevege føttene dine, hendene dine og leppene dine. Du kan snakke, og jeg kan forstå deg. Er du ikke et under? La oss gå dypere inn i dette, inn under huden din, og til den enkleste del i kroppen, den levende cellen. Se på denne modellen. Der er cellekjernen den viktigste delen. Du får høre mer om den i dette programmet. Alle levende vesener er bygd opp av levende celler. Se på denne Anna med ungene sine. Ser du? De beveger seg og svømmer rundt på leting etter mat. De lever. Ingen fiender å se, Annemor? Vel, det vet hun nok best selv. Slike blomster er også levende. Likeså de delikate sommerfuglene. Alt dette er bygd opp av levende celler, akkurat som du og jeg. Se, her deler en celle seg i 2 nye celler. Utrolig, ikke sant? Spesielt når du tenker på at cellen er bygd opp av døde molekyler og døde atomer. Hva er det som får dem til å leve? Hva er egentlig liv?
What is life? Life rides upon matter, and matter has to be highly organized to carry life. But there's a minimum of chemical organization which is necessary to bear life. The materialists say that life, since it's made up of atoms and molecules and chemical reactions, that life is just simply chemistry and nothing else. Now, we shall have to look into that question very carefully, because life certainly runs on chemistry and chemical reactions. But can we say, just because that is a fact, that life is therefore nothing more than chemistry, and since chemistry takes place by chance, that life could have originated at the start by chance chemical reactions?
Her er hjertet i livets mysterium, den levende celle. Ved deling og atter deling bygget de og bygget og bygget. Litt etter litt formet de deg. Omsluttet av din mors kropp fikk du gradvis tærne dine, føttene dine, bena og fingrene, nesa og munnen. Og endelig ble du født. Bort fra den varme og trygge plassen i din mor, og ut i den støyende verden. Der er du. Jeg kan forstå hvorfor du skrek så høyt, og nå kan vel du også det. Men er det ikke et mirakel? Der er du. Utrolig komplisert, teknisk presis, et under av et levende, voksende maskineri. Men hvordan kan de da si at liv bare er noe som har med død kjemi å gjøre?
Now, if life consists merely of chemistry and nothing but chemistry, the best way to understand its real potentialities is to look at some of the chemical substances of life, and then we shall see that it isn't merely a matter of chemistry. Now, the most important, perhaps the most important chemical substance in the cell is the DNA molecule. The DNA molecule is a very long chemical molecule, and it contains all the information which makes life what it is. The DNA molecule determines the color of your skin. It determines whether you're a crocodile or a cauliflower. It determines whether you're amoeba or an ape. It determines the species, and it determines the properties of the species in which you find yourself, whatever that may be. Now, how does it do it? It has sufficient information on it in the human being to fill with information 1,000 books, each with 500 pages of smallest print, full of chemical information, how to make you and how to maintain you. Now, look, this is rather complicated, so let's take something rather more simple to explain just how the DNA molecule does work. You all know the Morse code. Now, the Morse code is capable with 2 letters, a dot and a dash, plus the interval between the two, capable of writing down all the information in the Bible or any other book, if you know the Morse code. Now, if you take, say, a simple message in the Morse code, such as SOS. Now, SOS in the Morse code consists of dot, 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 dash, 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 and dot, dot, dot. And there you have the whole message of a person who's in distress. Now, the genetic code, the chromosomes and the DNA molecule, use exactly the same method in principle of storing information on this basis. Here I have a rope, and on this rope I've got here dot, 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 dash, 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 and dot, dot, dot. And I hold it up in front of you, and anybody who knows the convention of the Morse code will say, aha, he's trying to tell me that he's in distress. SOS, dot, 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 dash, 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 dot, dot, dot. Now, I could use any other sequence I like, and I could use lots more of rope to put in sequences to describe, say, the 23rd Psalm, the Lord is my shepherd, and you could all write it all up on just the basis of using a rope like this. Now, the DNA molecule consists not of one single rope like this, which I've got here in front of me, but it consists of 2 ropes. And the 2 ropes run parallel in a spiral form. And fixed between the 2 ropes are 4 letters, the 4 letters of the genetic code. And those 4 letters of the genetic code are simple chemical substances. You've got then a very long genetic molecule of DNA, all doubled and held together in the middle by hydrogen bonds, which are very weak chemical bonds. And when a cell divides, it simply opens up like a zip fastener, and one half goes into one cell, and one half goes into the other. Now that's a wonderful mechanism to look at, because it means that you can replicate the information of 1,000 books with each 500 pages of closely printed information on a system like this in about 20 minutes. You think of typing out the information of 1,000 books, each 500 pages in 20 minutes, without many mistakes. The second most important thing about this writing up of the book of life in the cell is this, that the molecule is capable of reading itself. Now, when we write a book, we have to get somebody to read it, but not so the cell. The cell makes, in the first place, what are known as ribosomes. And these ribosomes are complicated proteins, and they mount this double helix, which we call the DNA molecule. They mount it. And as they mount these double helices, they feel the information. We can read this with our eyes, and we can feel it with our fingers. So we have two methods of reading this book in our way of doing things. But in the cell, the ribosome mounts onto the double structure, and as it feels where the bases are, it spits out, as it were, the proteins which are written up in chemical language, and so makes you. Now, the information which this DNA molecule contains is, believe me, not written on those molecules which make up the strand. The cell containing such a piece of chemistry like this was not made by the pure chemistry of the molecules of which it's made. Therefore, I believe that there is an author which transcends the material, the matter of which these strands are made, which first of all conceived the information necessary to make a cell, then wrote it down, and then fixed in it a mechanism of reading it and realizing it in practice, so that the cell builds itself from the information which the author of that information put on there at the creation. And so I am, as a scientist, convinced that the pure chemistry of a cell is not enough to explain the workings of a cell, although the workings are chemical. The chemical workings of the cell are controlled by the information which does not reside in the atoms and molecules of that cell.
Vi lever i et intelligent univers, sier den kjente vitenskapsmannen Sir Fred Hoyle. Bibelen forklarer dette slik: I begynnelsen skapte Gud. Han skapte materie fra ingenting, og så ga han denne materien mange forskjellige former. Levende celler, små levende vesener med en celle eller fler, insekter som disse maurene, alltid travelt opptatt med sitt, og selvfølgelig fuglene som denne lille måken i redet sitt. Og hver gang Gud skapte, sier Bibelen at Gud så på det han hadde gjort, og så at det var godt, svært godt. Men uheldigvis forble det ikke lenge slik. De skapte løvene eter andre skapte dyr, selv om de er søte når de er små. De eter for eksempel disse Thomson-gasellene, som dessuten også slåss innbyrdes. Nei, alt er ikke lenger godt, selv om vi fortsatt kan ane skjønnheten i den opprinnelige skapelse. Men det er en annen historie. Bibelen forteller altså at en utenforstående intelligens skapte materien og skapte livet. Hvordan forklarer så materialistiske tenkere som evolusjonistene livets opprinnelse?
Evolutionists think that life arose spontaneously in a primeval soup. They believe that the atmosphere of the earth at the time life arose was a reducing atmosphere, and that it consisted of ammonia and water vapor and methane. Now, if lightning is passed through a mixture of this sort, it was thought that the basic building blocks of life would arise spontaneously. Miller and Fox, in a series of experiments they carried out in Chicago some 20 or so years ago, tried to repeat this and prove it experimentally. So they took a mixture of methane, ammonia and water vapor and passed an electric current through it, and did obtain a number of amino acids, which are the building blocks of life, and a few bases. Now, these bases and the amino acids were thought then to show that life, or the precursors of life, would arise spontaneously under such conditions. Therefore they proclaimed, and the scientific world still believes it today, that they produced experimentally the first steps in the spontaneous production of life. Now, is this the case? Well, there's no doubt about it that they produced the amino acids spontaneously in the bases. But are those bases and the amino acids they produced the ones which could be used for life? The answer is emphatically no, because life needs amino acids which are of the left-handed sort exclusively, and not of the right-handed sort to produce the proteins of life. The similar considerations apply for the production of the DNA molecule, which must have exclusively right-handed molecules. Now, life can't use mixtures because the stereochemistry isn't right. So it's emphatically the case that because they did produce racemic mixtures, that life could not arise spontaneously in a primeval soup of this kind. The stereochemistry is wrong.
Selv om Millers eksperiment I begynnelsen så ut til å gi et viktig bidrag til teorien om livets spontane opprinnelse, viser nøyaktige undersøkelser at det bare gjorde saken mer komplisert. Nei, hjertet I selve problemet, opprinnelsen til den informasjon som lagret her, fremdeles et mysterium. I Millers eksperiment ble en blanding av venstrehånds og høyrehånds aminosyrer dannet. Når vi har en blanding av disse to, dannes det etter det vi vet ikke liv I det hele tatt, selv om vi hadde liv I et langt kjede av venstrehånds aminosyrer, og så satte på en eneste høyrehånds aminosyre, ville denne ødelegge alt som var dannet. Bibelen forteller oss at det nok å se på naturen for å komme til den konklusjonen at det finnes en Gud. Så bare se og tenk. Og livet fremdeles det mysterium det alltid har vært, men det der, vakkert og mangfoldig. Gud sa, jorden skal la alle slags levende skapninger gå fram. Fe, kryp og ville dyr, hvert etter sitt slag. Og det ble slik. Gud skapte alle slags ville dyr og alle slags fe og krypet på marken av alle slag. Og Gud så at det var godt. Gud så på alt det han hadde gjort, og se, det var overmåte godt. Klokka tikker og går. Tannhjulene beveger seg, liksom de kjemiske substansene som bærer livet. Langsomt forvandler de framtid til fortid. Hvem laget urverket? Kanskje den eneste logiske forklaringen er at det var noen utenfor urverket. Tenk over det.
Now, you will remember at the beginning of our program we looked at a model of the DNA molecule and found out that it had to be ordered in a way like a book is, to store the information and give it again so that life can be built. Now, this information is not resident as such in raw inorganic matter. So we believe, and we have scientific grounds, as you've seen, for believing that there must have been an injection of information onto matter in order to produce a structure full of information like this. That is an act of creation in instructing matter how to build a cell. Therefore, the man who believes in creation is in no wise disturbed if a biochemist goes into his lab and takes the smallest particles of the earth, the dust of the earth, the chemicals of the earth, and with his spirit he organizes them up to life and makes a virus, or makes, perhaps in the course of time, a primitive cell. He has injected intelligence onto matter in order to do it. Now, when you look at the beauty of nature round about us, here's a clover flower, when you consider that that all grew out of matter injected with information of the type I've been describing, you can only be filled with wonder at the wisdom of a creator who first of all had the sense of beauty to do it, and then the technical ability to realize it. And I'm filled with wonder as I look around nature round about me to see how God technically did it and realized the beauty of his own soul in doing it. Now, it's an ideal rainy day for collecting worms. Charles Darwin was an expert on earthworms, and he was one of the first to show us how much we're indebted to these beautiful little animals who plough the land for us without charging us for it. But Charles Darwin is better known for his work known as The Origin of Species, which he published in 1859 and which precipitated a huge revolution in biology and produced the evolutionary theory of man and the animals and plants. So we're going to take a trip now to England, to Down in South England, to have a look at some of Darwin's work and his house there.